Hello, welcome back to my YouTube. My name is Obiama and I'm so glad you're joining me because I want to talk. I'm gonna get into it and I'm gonna even tone it down a little bit because truthfully this is a very serious conversation and I don't have that much time to have it, so I gotta be deliberate. I gotta be precise with my words. We're talking all about friendship. In my last talk we talked about access and the prophet's house and all of this, but I'm learning, and this was actually a suggestion for a video by a friend of mine. She's like, your definition of friendship has grown as you've grown, and you got to update the people. You got to let people know what it is because it's very interesting. And I said, you know what? Say less. I am here to oblige. And so this conversation is going to be all about friendship, what it means to be someone's friend, what I consider friendship. I'm not saying it should be everybody's standards, but mine are biblically backed. That's all I'm saying. And also some of the pitfalls that come in friendships, specifically in platonic friendships between women and women. I'm a girl's girl, so let's start that off. I am not one of those girls that has trauma from other women, so therefore I don't like women. I love women. I love being a woman. I love other women. I enjoy us. I'm fully and completely a girl's girl. So I want to lay that ground and that foundation because I think sometimes when a lot of these women discuss friendship, they don't even like their gender. And so you got to get over that trauma associated with your gender to have a very valid conversation on what it means to be in a relationship that is platonic with another woman in terms of a friendship. And so one of the things I started off with this saying was that my definition of friendship has grown over the years. Not recently, probably 2-3 years now, the Lord has overhauled my friends. I think I got a solid one that's been there consistently throughout, and then some people that I used to be friends with that are coming back into my life because the alignment is there now and we are heading towards the same path. I believe it's Amos 2:2, and if I'm incorrect I know it's Amos, I just don't know the specifics of the scripture. It says, how can two walk together unless they agree? And so that is just an anchor scripture when it comes to people that I call friends. And I've noted there's an issue with platonic female relationships. I can only speak to them because those are the kind of friendships that I have, where people, and especially when you are called, you are grace, you are shiny, because a lot of the times a lot of us, hear me with healed ears, a lot of us don't actually know how valuable we are, and because we don't know how valuable we are, we will let any old thing come into relationship with us because we see ourselves that low, so we will let other people treat us accordingly. I think it was Prophet Tiffany that says that they know how valuable you are, they're just hoping you're ignorant to it. And so I operated under the premise that I was not valuable for so long that I accumulated a lot of people in my life that didn't like me but wanted to be my friend because they saw the value in my life and they wanted to associate with that. I got wise. Maybe I got help. And I said, you know what? This ain't that. And I started cutting people, and I did it. Some of it was gracious, some of it was not very gracious. And I completely owned it. I think the other part of the conversation of friendship too is sometimes we want people to be our friends that we were called to mentor, guide, coach, and assist, right? We're supposed to be in relation with them. We're supposed to be in a form of relationship with them, but they were never supposed to be our friend, right? They were never supposed to be the people that got intimate access to us. They were never supposed to be the people that pour into us like we pour into them. And so then when the expectations we have of that relationship is not met because we have incorrectly discerned that person's role or purpose in our lives, then we look in some type of way and we feel in some type of way. The other part of that is, if you are in someone's life and the only reason you're in their life is to receive from them, and you get it twisted because you feel good because they fill you up, you receive from them, and then you somehow think that makes you their friend. No. You have to judge, and I'm going to tell you my standards for friendship, whether or not you qualify as that person's friend just because you receive from them, right? And the thing about our human nature is that what makes us feel good is what we gravitate to, right? The person that makes us feel good, they make us feel more, they encourage us. And hear me, those of you that have high gifts of exhortation. Hear me, those of you that are encouragers. Hear me, those of you that just love people, right? You are going to attract a lot of people that don't actually like you. They like how you make them feel, and they like what they have access to because of their association with you. And you have to be guarded about who is an assignment. Like, who are you supposed to do those things for and don't feel no type of way about it and just pour and be happy to do so? And who is a leech? Because you're going to attract a lot of leeches. And you got to cut the leeches off. And then even in the assignments, you're going to attract a lot of people that don't know that they're an assignment. And so therefore, you can't facilitate fully what God has called you to do in their life because they want to be your equal so bad in the context of that specific relationship. Right? And you got to be able to let them go too, as hard as it may be, because you do love these people. They're genuinely people you care about and you want the best for. And so that's, my word of advice to those of you that have the grace upon your life to exhort, who are shiny objects, and all of us are, right? All of us have a level of shininess. Some of us are graced for certain things more than others, right? Like, I love women, so therefore it's natural that the Lord would call me to be in relationship and to create community for women and to bring women together and do all these things that pertain to women. And it also puts me in a position that women would gravitate towards me, not because they want to necessarily be my friend or like me, right? But because the grace on my life. And so, yeah, I think you have to be aware of that too. Been experiencing a lot of friendship death and came to a couple of different truths. I've stated a lot of them already, but the first one is, I had low standards, and therefore I attracted low quality friends who knew my worth, but I didn't know my worth, so I lived in ignorance, and abuse was inevitable. When the function of a thing is unknown, abuse is inevitable. 2, I entered into and called people friends that really were assignments, that really were mentees, that really I was supposed to pour into, right? And 3, I had to learn how to navigate, transitional roles, because sometimes you will enter into a capacity with somebody, and this is not all the time, but it does occur, where you may arrive as the student, but then you become the master, and eventually you come into the place of teacher if that person does not continue to grow and evolve with you. And so then you have to navigate that dynamic. Is this okay, we're done? Or is this a time for that person to be humble and for me to also remain humble in this new alignment of roles, right? So that can happen. So the longer way thing is, what are Obiama's standards of friendship? Like, what makes somebody qualified to be my friend? And y'all, do not hate me, do not stone me. This is not Bible, but I do use some Bible. I think number 1, we have to be at the same rate of spiritual maturity. You're like, what does that mean? You don't have to be exactly where I am in the Lord, but you have to be hungry to get to where I am in the Lord. There has to be an alignment on the basic principles and foundations of godliness and righteousness, because at the end of the day, right, I only speak from a biblical worldview. If you don't speak from that, I'm gonna irritate you, and I know you're gonna irritate me. And so in order for us to have genuine, like, that's my friend, not associate, not somebody I like and love and hang out with, but that's my genuine friend, we have to have the same biblical foundation. But I also think we have to have the same hunger for the depth of our relationship to grow. And so I've noticed, like, if somebody is not, like, I might love them, we might have the same foundation biblically, but if their hunger is not concurrent with mine, it's hard for us to go deeper. Or if they're like obstinate to it, I don't even know if that's a real word. If they're like resistant to going deeper, it's hard for me and that individual to go deeper. So that's number 1 standard. We have to have the same moral foundation, biblical. That's the morality I'm speaking of. And there has to be the same pace in our progression towards God. So, like, what I mean by that is, like, I'm going 60 miles an hour, but maybe I'm ahead of you, and you're going 60 miles an hour and you're behind me. Like, we can have a friendship because at least we're both going 60 miles an hour. So, and at some point, like, the gap will be closed because there's mercy, there's grace. I'm hoping, by the grace of God. Or, I could be the one that's behind and you could be ahead, but, like, your pursuit of God, I'm hoping, encourages me to catch up to where you're at, because we have access and proximity and intimacy. So number 1 standard, same moral foundation. I think the number 2 thing is, I have to discern, what are we supposed to do together? Right? Because God is not a happenstance God. So he doesn't just put people together because he likes the idea of them. He puts people together because he has a purpose for them being together. So I'm going to discern, what is it that we've been called to do together? I'm going to make sure that I rightly observe you. I want to know what your character is about. Like, what things, because that character, again, is going to build off that foundation of what is your moral code. And I'm not saying you're going to be perfect, because I'm not. and I still have character things the Lord is dealing with me on. But are you pursuing perfection in your character, how you treat people, how you allow yourself to be treated, right? Because it's not always about how you treat people. It's also about what you allow for yourself, because scripture is very clear, the second commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. So if I see you don't love yourself, it's going to be very hard for me to be in relationship with you, because I know you don't have the capacity to love me because you don't love yourself. Because I can't be mad at you about it, but we can't be friends like that, because it's always going to be a place where I'm pouring into you, which I'm okay with, but that's not a friendship, right? That's not a mutual beneficial place where, and I'm not talking about when you have moments of, you're down or you feel, I'm talking about deep rooted insecurity where you always need me to affirm you, validate you. Like, that's not a friendship. So I will not give you that much access to me. And I've also seen in situations where that insecurity breeds jealousy. That jealousy breeds envy. And then I'm public enemy number one. I don't fight. So I'm going to move out of that situation unless you fight yourself and your demons. So second standard, like I said, is just, like, how do you love people? What's your character looking like? And how do you love yourself? And I think my third set of standards for like genuine friendship is, well, that's a good question. There has to be a third. How do you love me? Yeah, that's it. How do you love me? And that's, I think, and I have to navigate whether, and I have to be very intentional about not operating from a place of trauma, like being taken advantage of, and then now trying to retaliate against people because I was taken advantage of in the past, right? So with that being said, like, how do you love me looks like, how do you engage with me? How do you treat me? Like, I'm gonna observe, do you value me? Do you honor me? Do you and what does that honor look like? Do you really see who I am? Because if you don't see who I am, what's the purpose of us being together, right? Like, and in you seeing who I am, are you intentional about stewarding me? Do you steward me well? So if you've passed 1 and 2, you're probably going to pass 3. So yeah, those are my 3 criteria for friendship, and that's the season that the Lord has had me in. And it's been beautiful, y'all. Like, it's been hard cutting people off or just letting people know, hey, we are not what we were. And I've had to have a lot of hard conversations, and I have received a lot of offense. People are very offended by me, and I'm okay with it, because it's the nature of offense. Like, it happens to all of us, according to scripture. So I'm not special in that regard. But my call to action for anyone listening to this video is reevaluate your circle and really be intentional about building a community, and have good friends. You need them to grow. You need them to come into the fullness of who God has called you to come into. And you don't lower yourself or your standards for people that truly don't like you. They just like the grace upon your life. So y'all sit with that. I pray you have a blessed day. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, y'all.